Good evening. My name is Mattias Adolfsson. I'm an illustrator and draftsman from Sweden. I've been doing this for the last 14 years. Before that, I worked with computer games for a lot of years. And it's been a strange and wonderful journey, starting out with small projects and then larger projects, and now I prefer just to do my own stuff, and it kind of works out strangely enough. I always say that I do my art exactly the way I did when I was a child, so I have never kind of progressed. I really like to see my drawings as more like a journey with no planning and just starting to draw and then see what's happened, and hopefully something will happen tonight. It's night time, or it's early evening here in Sweden. And you can leave your comments and I will try to answer them while I draw. I will be using my fountain pen. It's a Pilot Falcon with an it's a Pilot Falcon with an extra fine nib. So I don't have to answer that question. And I will be drawing in a Moleskine sketchbook. So let's jump into it. Let's see if I can maybe move it a little bit like that. A lot of people kind of are afraid of the white paper, and they find it hard to just start. But when you've been doing this for a long time, it kind of goes pretty easy. It's doesn't really matter if something turns out a little bit wrong. It's the small errors that that bring the charm and the life to a drawing. I find. It's always kind of a strange thing doing these kind of live feeds, because it's always something that is affects the kind of process, because you have a camera just in front of your face. But hopefully it will turn out okay anyway. Do you learn to organize your drawing doodles so they don't get super messy? But I don't think about stuff like that, so it's I don't really have answers to it either, because it's just something. I guess it's something that you learn over time to just go with the flow, not really overthink anything. This is my process, and I really can't explain how it works. Sometimes I kind of get messy, but I from the beginning I kind of if you don't really if it's not super important the end result, it doesn't really have to be super perfect, then it's much easier to kind of just go with the flow. And if I'm not super happy with it, well, it's always the next day I can make a new drawing. So I'm not sure if I answered the question, but I don't think in the I wasn't properly schooled as an illustrator. I have a degree in graphic design, and prior to that I studied architecture, so I didn't learn how to become a proper illustrator, so I just learned it on my own. So that's why I really can't give proper answers to questions like that. Sorry. I think I'm going for a kind of gym theme for this drawing. It's important to, when you have a work that is a lot of sitting, it's important to move around a bit. What type of lighting do you prefer when drawing? Well, I have some LED lamps in my studio, and they are okay. But I really like to go outside and draw in cafes and in pubs. I haven't been doing that for the last year, understandably, but doesn't really matter. But good lighting is pretty good to have. I also kind of draw in front of the television sometimes, so anything goes. Just it can't be too dark. I find that having very little rituals when it comes to drawing kinds of make it easier. I don't really have to have specific things to be ordered to create. The less hookups you have, the easier it kind of is, I find. Probably love your style, wondering from where your imagination come from. Well, I don't know. It's a good classical education, I guess. I kind of find that starting out reading a lot of books, listening to people is a great way of feeding your imagination and not get too inspired by other artists. It's always good to be inspired, of course, but it's also important to step away from it and develop your own imagination. But I can't really get the exact source from it. It's like everything is just we are all part of a jigsaw of things that happen to us, and but a good education, I can always state. And always being open to new things. Francis Walker, what happened if you draw a line that you're not happy with? Do you make it fit around it, or do you erase it somehow? It comes down to doing this a lot and not really thinking that much about the small errors. When starting out, I guess I had those kind of hookups with drawing the wrong line, but this is just a small kind of sketchy drawings, and if something is not perfect, it's still okay. I don't think about errors anymore, but it comes with a lot of practice. So when I started out, I was probably more thinking about stuff like that, but I never think about a line that kind of doesn't feel perfect nowadays. when I do commission work, I kind of have to go through the process of making sketches, and in that case, I remove lines if the commissioner is not super happy with something. But for me, it's less and less enjoyable doing commissions. So. Sorry, my stomach is starting to mess up a little bit. I'm a bit hungry. I should have eaten something. What other than art inspires you? I listen to a lot of music. That kind of is my perhaps biggest inspiration. I wouldn't say that it inspires. It's more like on an emotional plane than actually inspiring the drawing thematically. So, but it's really, it lifts me up and start the kind of the flow that I enjoy when drawing. So that's probably my greatest source of inspiration. I get lots of inspiration when traveling as well, seeing new places and meeting new people. So I had to kind of find inspiration other ways this year. My very old dog is sleeping underneath me. She's going to be 15 years in a day or so. It's a Pilot Falcon fountain pen with an extra fine nib. And the ink is the Atramantis, and it's permanent, but doesn't destroy the pen. You have to be very picky when using inks in your fountain pens, because if you use Indian ink, it will destroy the pen. But this ink works great. I used to work with dip pens when I was starting out, but I really enjoy good fountain pen. And for me, it's I work with my pen pretty slanted, so I can't. For me, a fine liner doesn't work at all. I just answered that question. The Atramantis. There are other inks. You have to kind of Google it. I can't mention them all. I prefer the Atramantis. I used to work with an ink called American Eel by Noodlers, but it dries pretty slowly, and doesn't work on all papers. I had no problems at all with the Atramentis Document Ink, but you have to try it yourself, because a lot of people do not really think the Atramentis work for them. So you have to find your own kind of favorites. But you can use certain inks with a fountain pen. This ink dries so quickly, so you can almost go over it with watercolors directly. But when doing kind of large work on large papers, I always, for safety's sake, let it wait for about 24 hours or something, just to not risk anything. There are always people better at answering kind of these kind of questions. I just tried certain inks and I found that it suited me perfectly. But there are people writing about inks and pen that do that only, and they are much better than me answering these kind of questions. I haven't done that much research. I just find if one thing suits me, I just stick with it and don't really investigate further. Hello, have you illustrated children's book? And if you did, was the journey leading you to illustrate them? Yes, I've done some children's books, but I did not enjoy the process. For me, it's like I kind of when you get children, the work that the female do, the child labor and carrying the child for 9 months. It's a stupid comparison, but I kind of feel the same way. For an illustrator, it's so much work, and for the writer, it's not quite as much work, and it's pay really bad. For me, I didn't like it. I haven't enjoyed that process at all, and I will probably never do another children's book again. I don't really have that much interest in children's books at all. So it's for other artists. For me, it's most work I get. I just get contacted, and then I kind of do it. And I will try anything once. So it's not much of a journey, these kind of things. It just happened, and then I hang around for the ride. Do you have any tips on how to discipline oneself to focus on observing details or the structure of anything or anyone to later help apply in the future drawing? Well, that sounds really not very funny. I don't know. you will be amazed how much you can get away with. You just have to, when drawing something, it doesn't really have to be a perfect representation of something. You can really cheat a lot, and people think, oh, that's exactly how it looks. So I wouldn't forcing yourself to kind of getting stuff like that in your mind. I think it's really, really difficult if you're not into it. It's just, it will be a boring thing, and I don't think it will help your art in any way. So there might be some tips, but I don't know them. I kind of enjoy drawing certain stuff, and it kind of helps me. I started out studying to become an engineer, so that kind of probably helped me doing complicated machinery, I guess. But the stuff that I would kind of never perhaps draw because I don't have any interest in it. So, and then I'm probably very bad, and it wouldn't help me anything if I've studied it for a very long time. I would still be very bad at drawing anyway. So if you don't enjoy it to start with, I think you should try to draw something else instead. But one way is probably just to have a sketchbook and sketch as much as possible from reality to start with. That will help you to see how things look. Maybe I kind of started out drawing from life, and then I got fed up doing it. I find it so difficult to get the proportion of the human face correctly. How do you do that? It's again, try to draw as much as possible from when you're at a cafe, sit down and try to just catch people's faces in your vicinity or in front of the television. The human face is probably do not look the way most people think. The ratio with the eyes are in the middle of the face, so people tend to draw them too high. And if you just start to think about some of the proportions right, maybe it will become easier. But it's difficult for me. It's very difficult to draw lifelike portraits. I'm really bad at it, so yeah, I don't do it very much. And I kind of like mixing animals and humans. When I get tired of drawing one, I switch over to some animals. So in order not to get bored. Where are you located? I'm located in a small city in Sweden called Sigtuna, quite close to the capital. As it happened, it's Sweden's oldest city. Nice. I live just by the forest, so when it's winter, I can go skiing, cross country skiing, and we can go out in the forest and walk with our dog, and then we can go into Stockholm, the capital, to get the enjoyment of a large city. So it's quite nice to live here. Do you have any tips to improve in perspective and getting right the angles of things when drawing? You can, I would prefer go an online course or buy a book. As always, there are no easy fix when it comes to drawing. You just have to do it a lot. That's the only way you learn. There's no quick fix for anything. It's I think most people think it's very, if you just learn certain rules, everything else will fall into place. But the key is to do it all the time and really enjoy the process. That's the way you learn anything. Perspective is not super difficult. It can be very difficult if you go deep on the technical part, but I prefer to keep it easy. So start out small and go from there. And it's not super important that the angles are perfect. It's this drawing I'm making now, it's get a sense of volume, but I have no perspective vanishing points or anything. It's just, it kind of works anyway, so you don't have to nothing had to be perfect all the time. How can I find my own style and keep it? Well, the keeping part is probably not a problem. As kind of developing your own style, it's the same thing as all the other answers I give. It comes down to putting down the hours. It's also one thing that I never thought about, finding my own style. It kind of just happened. I think it's kind of hard if you think about it, but if you just draw as much as possible, the style might find you instead. Doesn't happen to you to make little errors while drawing? If so, how do you fix it? Geez, I kind of answered that already, but okay, I never make errors. No, but it's I don't think about errors. So it's and if you don't think about it, and that's the charm of drawing. It's not a perfect medium. It doesn't have to be perfect. If something is a little bit ajar and something a little bit wrong, just show that it's been made by a human. So stop thinking about the error part. For me, it was really important to get into that thinking that I always complete each drawing. I used to start drawing and then, oh, I'm not happy with this, so I didn't complete it. But at one stage, I just started to think, well, never mind, I will just kind of finish this drawing anyway. It's not super great. And that kind of helped me getting out of that way of thinking about that everything has to be perfect. So be happy with your small errors. It shows your humanity. The drawing that you are executing live has been thought through in advance concerning themes, characters, numbers, them, and composition. It's just improvisation all the time. I had kind of had the thought of making some kind of gym theme, but it's I always say that this goes for using pencil as well. Why would I want to do a drawing twice? I want the drawing to be kind of a journey, both for me and for who is watching. I guess starting out, this was really, when I started out doing this, it was really kind of took its toll on my mind. But when you're used to it, it's comes to second nature. So it's just something you can learn as everything else. But it's for me, this kind of things work. I enjoy it most when not planning, but it's not for everyone. I understand that. So it's just the way that my kind of mind is wired now, and I would probably say that it has taken its toll on my mind. So I'm lousy at other things. I can do drawings like that, but it's a lot of other things that I have problems with. It's like when you're blind, your other senses get better, and it's kind of when you learn to draw like this. At the same time, you get bad at other stuff. So be warned. Once you do the sketch, well, colors is always kind of the hard part for me. I'm partial colorblind, so my palette is really kind of narrow. So I always been very insecure when it comes to color. So, but it was the same thing as with the kind of lines. I just started to. I stopped thinking about all the small errors, but I can't say that I really enjoy the color process as much as the actual drawing, and it's more like tedious. And if I get commission and they have certain things, they want a specific color palette, I just say no, sorry. It's more like a random process. I can't control it perfectly. So that's how I see colors. I would say that my color senses are probably on par with my dog's color sense. Vänta lite, Asta. My dog is starting to complain a little bit. She's having, I think it's boring, me sitting here talking. Do you personally do when you feel too unmotivated or tired to draw? If I'm too tired, I just don't draw, I guess. But I find it's kind of helpful to have certain certain things that I kind of more or less can draw on autopilot, or perhaps choosing a theme that I've been working on prior, but just doing a slightly less kind of new take on the same subject. So starting out with something I already have done and then kind of just, but for me most of the time just starting to draw kind of break that unmotivation spell, and for most of the time it kind of ends when I start drawing, but it happens. But if you're too unmotivated, I would probably just take the dog for a walk or something like that, or go out for a run. While I still remember it, I'm going to give a push to Domestika scholarships. You can apply until the 25th of April. The goal of those scholarships is to encourage learning about creative disciplines. This year, 10 participants will be awarded a scholarship that grants them free access to 50 courses of their choosing. Anyone over the age of 16 can participate, and there will be more information in the comments and online. So I would really encourage you to give it a try, and will also be an opportunity for me to see your portfolio and get input. That's the advantage of using kind of a sketchbook like this. The drawing is finished when I'm out of paper. So that is the rule. It's a good question because it can be difficult. It's not over until the fat lady sings. Do you have a dream project that you haven't done yet? I've been so lucky to been able to do this as a living, and I would say that probably that is my dream project to get to get that far. I don't have any kind of big project that I'm longing for at the moment. I've done so many large projects, and for me, just to do my own drawing is more than I could ever have dreamt of. So no, but I judge myself as extremely lucky. And couldn't wish for much more, to be frank. I just want to thank you for the Domestika sketchbooking course. I'm not so afraid. That's great. That's more than I could hope for. And the less you think about the mistakes, the less you will make, I guess. How long have you been drawing professionally? I stopped my work at the game studio in 2007, and I've been doing this ever since. I work with games, I work with 3D modeling and programming. So I kind of was a professional in a creative business. So I had a lot of help working with large projects from the game company. But as an illustrator, it's been since 2007. I started posting stuff on online in 2006. So that's when I started drawing again and not working on the computer. Hey, Mattias Adolfsson, I took your first course and loved it. I learned a lot. It was my first domestic course. Do you think I can draw with your method for the cities on isometric 3D paper? I just got some... Oh, yeah, of course. I haven't used isometric paper myself, but certainly it's a great help. If you want, we can answer one more question. And okay, sorry. I can answer one more question, and then I will kind of wrap this live session off. So, okay, that's a new question. It may be a practice thing, but how do you watercolor within the lines so precisely? My watercolors tend to bleed over the lines. Is it part of the paper? Yes, it might be, and it's a combination of the ink and the paper, and the watercolors. I find that this ink kind of forms a barrier of the colors, and I wouldn't say that it's perfectly inside. Let's see if I have I tend to go outside the lines, but for most of the part, the line kind of blocks out the color. So I would say that it's a combination. I would probably experiment a little bit with all different papers and different inks and watercolors. And when it comes to certain materials, you kind of get what you pay for. I tend to kind of pay a little bit more when I choose my watercolor brushes and watercolors, because they tend to, you get more control over them, and most of the materials you can have for a really long time. If you buy a good watercolor brush, it will hold for a long range of years, but if you buy cheaper, kind of start work after. but I will probably try to experiment a little bit. And again, I use kind of not that much water when I do my watercolor, so I kind of do it pretty dryly, so that's also where you control it more, not using that much water. Thanks so much for watching this feed. I didn't manage to fill out the complete page. Most of the time 1 hour is not enough for one spread, but I got started, and I hope this inspires you to go out to a gym and really start working out a lot now. So thanks all for your questions, and remember the Domestika scholarships. It's a great way of learning new things and be judged by a professional jury. I'm one of them. So take the chance of signing up and see what's happened. And there will be more information on this site and also on my channels. Well, I have so many channels, I can't count them. But it's been really nice answering your questions, and I hope I didn't... I've been struck by this kind of spring tiredness. I'm not sure why it's happened. It happens all springs for me. So it's been nice meeting you all, and hope to see you soon again. Goodbye.
La idea es como algo muy frágil.
Se me fue la hebra.
I'm going to show you some examples. This is what we've got behind me.
¿Qué más preguntas tengo por aquí? ¿Cómo descubriste que lo tuyo era